Hello, my friends. Good afternoon to you. It is 3:06 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. And boy, do we have a big show in store for you today. Mark Paoletta is here at 3:30. He's the senior fellow at senior fellow for Renewing America. And he's the co-editor of the book Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words. Mark's going to give us a perspective on the attacks on both Trump and on Clarence Thomas and how they're all interconnected. It's a super important topic. We'll get to that coming up. Terry Schilling is here at 4 o'clock. The left wants to separate you from your children. Josh Christensen joins us at 4:30. He's a reporter for the New York Post. We'll talk about the ongoing cover-up of Hunter Biden's visits to the White House. And Victor Davis Hanson joins us. That's right. Dr. VDH is here at 5 o'clock. Don't miss that. And join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. The most impressive person in the White House, Karinge Jean-Pierre, gave a press briefing today. And it was an end-of-the-year summary of all of the great work they've done for us, because apparently this is the last one. This is the final press briefing of the year. In fact, as she left the lectern today, she said, "See you next year." That means she'll probably be back Monday for a briefing.
See you next year. Bye, guys.
Well, she'll have a briefing tomorrow.
See you next year.
See you next year. She has no idea what the date is. Anyway, that apparently is the last one of the year. And what didn't go very well, I mean, even the lefty news outlets were asking, hey, what do you tell Americans who think the economy sucks?
You started talking about accomplishments from this last year. You talked about the economy. But in our latest ABC News poll back in November, by a 10-point margin, Americans still said that they would trust Republicans on the economy more. So what is your message to Americans who just think what you've done on the economy is not enough?
Look, we understand what Americans have gone through. We do.
I feel your pain. They understand what you've gone through. You see, at the White House, they really get what it's like to be a normal, everyday American. You know, right? Because in some way, we're all lesbian, immigrant, black women who are leading the White House press conference on a daily basis. You know, we all are. It's very relatable. We all went to Columbia University. It's like, obviously, we're all paid nearly $200,000 a year to say nothing at the lectern. All of us, in a way. Maybe not in a real way, but in a symbolic way, in like some sort of spiritual way. We're just like her, and she's just like us. And in fact, like everybody in the Biden administration is just like us, aren't they? They really get it. They really get it. You know, John Kerry, I'm sure that he probably uses the bathroom just like anybody else. I mean, it's a private bathroom on his private jet as he flies to and from his climate conferences, but still, he uses the bathroom just like anybody else. What about Sam Brinton, that poor guy? All of us have odd, bizarre pronouns that we're supposed to be referred by. We all steal luggage at Dulles. We all dress up in that luggage when we steal it and then take photos in it. And then some poor African woman who actually designed it discovers that we stole her clothing. That's normal. That's normal. We're all just like them. In fact, we're all basically fake admirals who are men pretending to be women who are in charge of, I don't know what, but it has something to do with the nation's health. I don't know what that's about. But there you go. Admiral Levine. Rachel Levine? Is that it? Rachel? Yeah. We're all Rachel Levine in a way. In a very distant way. So Karinge today is like, yeah, look, we get it. We understand what it's like to be poor right now during the Biden era. We're just like you.
So what is your message to Americans who just think what you've done on the economy is not enough?
Look, we understand what Americans have gone through.
Yes.
We do.
Yes.
They went through, and you've heard me say this many times before.
Name one thing. Name one thing they went through. Let's see if you can identify it.
And my other colleagues, coming out of the pandemic was a tough time.
Yeah, coming out of the pandemic was a tough time. Do you remember coming out of the pandemic? What is this phrasing she's using?
And my other colleagues, coming out of the pandemic was a tough time, a difficult time for so many Americans.
Oh, yes.
And we understand it's going to take some time for them to feel the accomplishments and what we've been able to do in the last 3 years.
Yes, you see, the reason you feel miserable is long COVID right now. That's what it is. You're still coming out of the pandemic. It's the long COVID. It's just walloping your bank account. It's not paying you as much as you need to afford your expenses. It's putting you in over $1 trillion in credit card debt, that pandemic. It's crazy what's happening. But Biden's here for you. Biden's going to be your shoulder to cry on. He'll sniff your hair while you're doing it, but you'll be able to cry on his shoulder. Isn't that an advantage? Oh, shouldn't you be grateful for that? Karinge was also asked today about the border, which used to exist. And here's what she said.
I understand you don't want to negotiate from the podium, but can you tell the American people if there's any immigration policy that this White House is willing to talk about and is working on?
No. The answer is no. Why are you even bothering asking this question? Why won't the White House secure the border? That's all you need to say. Why won't they do it? Is there any policy you'd be willing to use to secure the border? Because I have friends who live in Chicago and New York, and they don't really like all these illegal immigrants living in their front yard.
Immigration policy that this White House is willing to talk about and is working on with Republicans?
So I want to be really careful as negotiations happen. We don't want to do this in the public, right? It does not help the process.
It doesn't help the process for the public to be informed on what we intend to do with the border.
And so we want to make sure that those negotiations are happening. Obviously, we're part of those negotiations.
They do have utter contempt for the people, though, right? I mean, they're not actually defenders of democracy. Anytime the public has an opportunity to even hear what's happening behind the scenes, they refuse to tell you. What's going on with immigration? Oh, sorry, can't tell you. Don't want to get ahead of that. It's closed-door negotiation. We'll let you know when we're done screwing the country up enough. That's the posture. Heck, you're not even allowed to know when all of Joe Biden's business partners arrive at the White House. That's some of the most secretive information in the country. Hunter Biden's visits to the White House and trips aboard all of the U.S. taxpayer-funded aircraft, not allowed to know about that. In fact, New York Post reporter Josh Christensen is going to join us at 4:30 with more detail on the lack of detail that the White House is providing when it comes to the Biden family business arrangement. Yeah, sorry. Those visitor logs, Hunter Biden doesn't qualify. You don't get to know how often Hunter is here and with whom, right? Traditionally, with the White House, there's big lists of who's meeting whom and where, what room were they in, who gave them access to the White House. Yeah, Hunter's just doing anything he wants, flying on Marine One. How many business partners is he bringing with them? Are they free from this restriction too? Friends with Hunter, no need for transparency. So she's asked about this. What's the southern border policy? Are you going to present a single immigration idea that could actually stop this?
Do this in the public, right? It does not help the process. And so we want to make sure that those negotiations are happening. Obviously, we're part of those negotiations with the senators. We think it's going in the right direction. We want to make sure that we get to a bipartisan agreement. It's incredibly important.
The right direction is to send people away from us. That's the right direction. And that's not what these guys are for. If you hear the White House saying that they're happy with the direction of immigration negotiations, you know what that means. You know what they're happy about. That we are going to bring in more foreign nationals into the country. Please, Republicans, please. I know you guys are suckers. I know that too many of you are. Do not fall for this. This is just, like 1986 should be evidence enough. What happened in 86? You have an immigration deal between the Congress and the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, and he gets two parts, right? The parts are amnesty and secure the border. Amnesty and secure the border. Well, amnesty the illegals who are here. We'll secure the border and make sure this never happens again. What happened? Amnesty happened, secure the border didn't. So you really going to do fool me 10,000 times? Is that really the game we're going to play? The border overwhelmed. I think the numbers are something over 11,000 in the last 24 hours encountered on the border. And this is supposed to be the slow season. When it gets cold, it's not supposed to be the swim across the Rio Grande season. And yet, we're looking at well over 11,000, and some days 12,000, 12,400, record numbers each day. Karinge says, well, it's a private negotiation. I don't want to tell you in public what's actually happening with it. But I'm very happy. We're so pleased with the direction this is heading.
We're part of those negotiations with the senators. We think it's going in the right direction. We want to make sure that we get to a bipartisan agreement. It's incredibly important. The president understands. He understands.
He understands
that we have to fix this immigration.
He knows things. He understands things. He's so active. He's awake all the time. Not that the rest of us aren't. He doesn't even sleep. That's how doggedly he's working for the American people. This is the piece they planted earlier this week in Axios to let everybody know that they're trying to get Biden to slow down in his advanced age. He's working too hard. He's doing too much. He's way too active. He's so much stronger and more agile than all of us. And that might be true in Karinge's case, but for the most part, I would say, Biden's probably a lot slower than almost everybody else in the White House. But she says he's working so hard on this. This is the thing he's obsessed with. Really? Because the border's gone.
He understands that we have to fix this immigration system. It has been broken for decades now. And so we have to do everything that we can to fix that system. And so we're going to have those conversations. And you're right.
Everything
it's not
that
just
we
about
can.
Funding. It's also about policy discussions that they're
What a
having.
lie.
And so don't want to get ahead of it. And let's not forget, this is a president that has had these types of negotiation or been part of these types of, his team certainly has been part of these types of negotiations.
What is she even saying? She just said the word negotiation like 8 times in a row and didn't get anywhere.
The president has had these types of negotiation or been part of these types of, his team certainly has been part of these types of negotiation.
His team.
Negotiations for some in different subjects and legislation. So that has happened for the last two almost 3 years, and they've been successful. So we're going to continue to do that.
It was an impressive answer. What was the question again? How did that start? Can you name one immigration policy that you would put into action to stop the flow of all these people? And she also said this is no big deal. This happens all the time. This happens all the time. Stupid Americans. You think 12,000 people cross the border every day? That this is new? Sorry, that this is new? Yeah. They do this every day. It's always like this, says Karinge. It's just weird that you're noticing.
And what we're seeing here at the border, the migration flow, increased migration flow, certainly it ebbs and flows. And we're at a time of the year where we're seeing more at the border. And it's not unusual. This is an immigration
There's nothing unusual about this. It's totally fine, says Baghdad Bob. It's like nothing has changed. Everything is normal. The Americans are not here. This is business as usual. It ebbs and flows. Don't you understand?
More at the border, and it's not unusual. This is an immigration system that has been broken for decades, and the president has taken this very seriously to try to do more.
Oh my God. Do you think Biden, I mean, to the extent that he's with it, do you think he knows how insulting it is to have this person be the White House press secretary? To stand up there every day and say literally nothing and then just lie to us? Probably. He probably knows. I mean, he spent his entire career doing the same thing, right? Just lying brazenly. But for her to stand up there and be like, this is totally normal. It happens every day. 12,000 people a day crossing the border. It's just weird that you're noticing. It ebbs and flows. It's existed for a long time. So we need comprehensive immigration reform, which is amnesty for millions of foreign nationals so they can stay in the country. And she's going to be fine. She makes a crap ton of money. She's going to make a lot more money when she leaves the White House eventually. Somebody's going to pay her for her Hunter Biden level skill set. Somebody's going to pay her a lot of cash. Oh, you know Joe Biden? I'll give you $1 million a year to be a television contributor. How far are we? What's the prediction here? How far are we from Karinge auditioning for MSNBC? Like maybe in the next few weeks. Now, that said, it is now becoming a perennial thing for me. I predict that she will leave the White House in December of each year. That was last year I did. I was like, there's no way she's lasting. There's no way. There's no way. How could she possibly stick around? She achieved what I didn't think was possible. She stuck around for the whole last year. But I'm still betting that she's gone. Soon. We'll see. Maybe they'll finally take the training wheels off of John Kirby and just let him do the press briefing the whole time. They may as well. He basically does them now anyway. She's just the White House mascot. I mean, but he's doing the briefing. He's doing the whole thing. Well, good afternoon to you. 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Terry Schilling joins us at 4 o'clock. We'll talk about families and the government's efforts to interfere in those. Josh Christensen is a reporter for the New York Post. He joins us at 4:30. And then Dr. Victor Davis Hanson is here at 5 o'clock for the big picture on the left's tyranny and the future of the United States. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. An expression of the left's tyranny is playing out this week as the state of Colorado is the first among potentially several states to remove options from the ballot for voters. Donald Trump being ejected from the Colorado primary ballot, and if it succeeds, subsequently the general election ballot. States like California and Maine are soon to follow. Questions abound about how quickly the United States Supreme Court may take up the case and save us from the latest expression of the left's interference. Now, in the midst of all of this, you start digging into, okay, who is kind of engineering all of it? Who's making all of it happen? And I talked about this yesterday to some extent, that there's a group called CREW, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, which is a big left-wing dark money organization, which is responsible for trying to get Trump thrown off the ballot all across the country. But if you dig a little deeper, as I have, something you find out pretty quickly is that this is a group that's funded by George Soros. And it sits alongside a constellation of organizations that are all funded by Soros and many of his left-wing billionaire friends that are dedicated to undermine every institution where a left-wing agenda isn't advancing without any friction at all. So that includes the United States Supreme Court. Soros has been dumping money into organizations trying to destroy that institution, and with a particular focus on trying to destroy one justice, Clarence Thomas. And that's where our next guest comes in. Mark Paoletta is here. He's a senior fellow at the Center for Renewing America. He's a co-editor of the book Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words, and he joins us now. Mark, good to have you with us, sir. Can you hear us?
Oh, hey, Vince. Sorry about that. I was on mute. Thanks for having me on.
Well, grateful for your time today, Mark. I was thinking this morning, who should I have on this subject? And I realized you're the perfect person. You're the perfect person for it because you are familiar with a bunch of the main characters in this saga. But when you saw this week that Donald Trump was thrown off the ballot in Colorado because of a Soros-funded David Brock aligned organization called CREW, were you surprised?
Absolutely not, Vincent. And you know, we met a long time ago on our work on David Brock and
yes.
all of the crazy things he's done of late. But yes, he took over CREW several years ago. I think he's gone, but they've continued the same. And as you said, Vince, they're funded by Soros. They're funded by over the years, the Tides Foundation, the Scheller Family Foundation, the Mayberg Family Charitable Foundation, all of these left-wing groups, the Democracy Alliance, David Geffen Foundation. So they are a left-wing group, and their charge, their mission, just like ProPublica, right, is to destroy the Supreme Court. Why? Because the Supreme Court is the last bastion of our republic, to protect our republic from the crazy left, like this crazy case out in Colorado, which, as you just pointed out before the break, the Washington Post thinks is crazy. So this is the left at work. They use these groups. They make these charges, and as you said, CREW in particular has been going after Justice Thomas, who is our greatest justice, our greatest living American, and all they do is concoct, fabricate lies just to kind of get their way, to go after these folks. We saw this going all the way back to 1991 when Anita Hill, right, the left put her forward, pure lies. And you know what? The good thing is the American people, right, wake up to this stuff. They watched those hearings. They knew
yes.
she was lying. Right, it was 2-1. They believed Thomas. 58% to 24%. Only 26% of women believed Anita Hill. She was a liar, but that's who the left pushed forward. And who was helping that? Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden was facilitating that. He knew she was lying. He called Clarence Thomas on the night he was confirmed to congratulate him and say, don't let this get you down. You're a person of character. This is what they do. They say lies. They try and destroy people. And then when they fail, they move on. And that's what's going to happen here. They will fail.
So, but I just want to return to the central characters here in terms of being the power centers. So
sure.
I'm glad you brought up ProPublica. So ProPublica, yeah. which is supposed to be nominally a nonprofit news outlet, has been spending a great deal of its column inches, to use an old phrase, dedicated to trying to destroy Clarence Thomas, right? To suggest that he's doing something unethical, being on the United States Supreme Court and having a rich friend. That's basically what their attacks have been. But yeah, they are Soros. They are Soros funded, ProPublica. They've taken hundreds of thousands of dollars at least from Soros over the past few years. Crew has taken millions of dollars, and these are just based on public disclosures of Soros funding, because so much of this is dark money. Soros has given, through his Open Societies Foundation, $2.85 million since 2017 to Crew. Soros has also funded organizations like Demand Justice, which have been trying to destroy the United States Supreme Court and have it out for people like Clarence Thomas. And so once you start looking at all of the players here, you realize they're all completely interconnected and they're all being bankrolled by the same forces.
That's exactly right. And I think the Sandler Foundation gives a lot to ProPublica. And it's important to remember, when did ProPublica start their attack on Clarence Thomas? After the Dobbs decision. Right? So this was the destruction, sort of, if you will, of the Supreme Court returning to its roots, its original purpose, to apply the Constitution, to be faithful to the Constitution. That sent the left, right? They leaked this, the draft Dobbs opinion, and then, of course, you're seeing the leaks on the decision-making on Dobbs just the other day. It's the decision that, you know, the left went ballistic on, and ProPublica, in my view, got energized to really go after Justice Thomas and literally devote thousands of man hours to going after Justice Thomas. They are still going after him today. Okay, they're going after Harlan Crow. They're going after anyone, you know, who stands in their way. And it's dangerous, right? It's leading to, and it kind of triggers off of Chuck Schumer, right, who told the Supreme Court, standing on the steps of the Supreme Court justices, if you rule the wrong way, we will come after you. You won't know what hit you. And so I think it tracks back to Schumer and these left-wing groups working hand in hand. As you said, I think one of the guys on Crew, I testified with him once, Donald Sherman, who's the chief counsel, right? He worked in the Obama White House, special assistant to the president for racial and economic justice at the White House, senior counsel to Claire McCaskill, chief oversight counsel to Elijah Cummings. I mean, these are left-wing people. They are not good government people.
Right.
They are left-wing people dedicated to undermining the one thing they don't control. Remember, the interesting thing, right, and I've said this before, Vince, the Supreme Court, whether it was Republican presidents or Democrat presidents, all the justices they appointed were basically left of center. The left controlled the Supreme Court, right? Think of Harry Blackmun, think of David Souter, right? Think of John Paul Stevens. These are all Republican appointees. So they had this super legislature to implement left-wing policies. That's all ended when President Trump appointed 3 justices, and in my view, Justice Thomas, who, you know, laid down the jurisprudence over the past 30 years for them to go to. And they're furious. They're furious. They didn't stop them in '91. So that's what's going on here.
And they try, and your point's well taken, they try and hurt the institutions they don't control. So they don't control the Supreme Court, and they want to hurt it. They want to disable it as a result. They don't control the American people. That's a big one. And they're trying to hurt our ability to have an option in the election, literally removing candidates from the ballot to prevent voters from having a say.
Right. And if you look on Crew's website, which I did a little bit ago, there's nothing on Joe Biden. There's nothing on, right? Hunter Biden, the biggest scandal, the biggest criminal enterprise. He's selling access. His father's facilitated. There's not a single thing on the Crew website. You're talking about, what are they doing with Clarence Thomas? They're investigating his friendships. I mean, how pathetic and despicable is that? Right? That's literally what it was. Even ProPublica, in their latest story, says his friends didn't have any business before the Supreme Court. This is literally about friendships, and they turn a blind eye. They facilitate, actually, you know, this enterprise by Biden and his son, and this is all they're focused on, is trying to take out Justice Thomas, trying to take out the Supreme Court. Noah Bookbinder, I think, is the head of Crew, and they're jumping up and down because of this crazy Colorado, you know, in happiness over this Colorado case. But yes, it's one of the most abominable decisions, you know, in a long time. But it's all to stop President Trump, all to prevent the American people from having a choice on Election Day next year.
Do you think it's suspicious that Bookbinder, or at least dangerous, I guess, that Noah Bookbinder, who does head Crew, you know, and I was talking about his bio yesterday. He's a longtime Democrat staffer. He worked for Patrick Leahy in the Senate, and he runs Crew now. which is a Soros-funded left-wing organization that's not that shy about its desire to destroy Trump and the people who support him. He also is on the Homeland Security Advisory Committee. He was appointed to that position by Alejandro Mayorkas last year. And I don't know how much money is involved there. I don't know how much access to classified information is involved there, but I definitely know that you've got the ear of the DHS secretary who's supposed to assess who is a threat to the homeland and who is not. Do you find that a little bizarre that the guy who heads Crew is also a Homeland Security advisor?
Yeah, I didn't know that, Vincent. That's great work on your part. That is troubling. But you know what it shows? It just shows the incestuousness of the left, right? That's what it shows. And that, this guy's got the ear of the secretary on some panel that is advising him. And he's supposed to be an independent, right? This is what's their Crew, Citizens Responsible and Ethical Government. Like,
yeah.
How is that? How are you able to be objective when you're a appointee?
When you're a stooge of the federal
government,
government?
that type of position.
Yes.
Right. I looked at some of their statistics too. It's like 80% of their complaints are against Republicans. It's no surprise, right? But when you see data like that, it just shows they're all left wing. You didn't see anything, right? I've written a lot about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and all the things she did, right? She signed an opinion to raise money for the pro-abortion now, right? She was honored at the Democrat Women's Club with the Eleanor Roosevelt Award, which is, the Democrat Women's Club is a partisan group dedicated to electing Democrats. And nobody cares about that. The Crew doesn't go after her for that, right? These are clear ethics violations, actually, and they didn't say a single thing. Now, it's not to show you how incestuous it is. You know who emceed the event at the Democrat Club? Nina Totenberg for NPR, right? So you have these Democrats that don't care about ethics, and you see that. A group I'm with, as you mentioned, Citizens for Renewing America, just filed a complaint against Justice Jackson yesterday for not disclosing her husband's income for 10 years, over a span of 10 years. Now, where's Noah Bookbinder on that? Where's Crew on that? Where's ProPublica on that? They're nowhere to be found. All they want to do is go after the conservative justices, and that's what your listeners should know. This is not about ethics. This is not about, conduct. This is all about trying to undermine the Supreme Court, to shrink the court on these specific cases, just like this Colorado case, right? They have this crazy notion that Justice Thomas should recuse because his wife, Ginny Thomas, Ginny Thomas, a great conservative activist, has an opinion on the 2020 election, but somehow he has to recuse. Absolutely bogus, absolutely absurd, but this is what they push to kind of get their way. We saw it again with the biggest lie of all with Anita Hill back in 1991, and you saw it again with Christine Blasey Ford in the Kavanaugh hearings. This is what they do. They try and smear people to get their way. They can't win on the issues. They want to engage in character assassination, and it's all funded by these billionaires.
Yes.
That basically, as I see it, give them assignments to go do this. And that's what they are. These aren't honest brokers. They aren't ethical watchdogs. They are partisan attack dogs.
Okay, so that's my final question then. How diffuse is this effort to take down all of these institutions? In other words, is this just people who are like-minded, fellow travelers who kind of have a sense of what the mission is, that they have to advance the left at all costs and take down anything that gets in the way? Or do you feel like there are a couple of power brokers in the center who really do wield control, a la a George Soros, for instance, who are calling the shots in a big way?
I think it's a combination of both, right? It's Soros, it's Arabella advisors, right? I mean, I think there are people that are at the top of the chain, but they're all like-minded. And the reason Reid Hoffman, and the reason it gets so much play is that the media, right, is similarly minded. So it takes a lot of convincing to say, this is a great opinion out in Colorado, or Clarence Thomas should recuse because of this absurd thing. They're all like-minded, and they're willing to do what they need to do to get their way. And it's important for conservatives to stand up and defend these institutions, to defend in particular, I don't want to be a Johnny One Note, but the Supreme Court and Justice Thomas, because they are under attack. It's an unprecedented attack on the court and our institutions and people need to stand up more and push back against these lies.
Yes, yeah, and you're right about the media. You don't need any centralized coordination to get everybody on the same page. It's not like you need a crackerjack decoder ring. All you do is say, does this help Democrats or not? And then they take the position that helps Democrats every time. All right, thank you. Hey, I'm always appreciative of our conversations. Mark Paoletta, thank you very much for your time today, sir. Oh, man, oh, man. Let's see here. I've got Bo calling in from Warrenton now, line 1. Bo, good afternoon. You are on the Vince Colonnade Show. Hello.
Yes, thank you, Vince. I wasn't able to get in on Chris Plant this morning, but it seems like the Democrats are up to the same old playbook with this taking Trump off the ballot. You know, it started back in 1860. I used to be a pretty good student of Civil War history, and anyway, I thought I had heard that Lincoln was not allowed on a number of state ballots in the South, and I looked that up this morning. I had to do it state by state, but it appears that the Democrats didn't let Lincoln appear on the ballots, the presidential ballot for Alabama, Georgia, Arkansas, Florida, Mississippi, North Carolina, Tennessee, Louisiana, and Texas. Not one single vote was cast for him because he was not on the ballot. Imagine that.
Interesting. I've seen some back and forth on this because I did hear this claim earlier this week, and I thought it was useful for a number of reasons. One is like, well, once again, it's the American left trying to deprive people of the ability to vote for the candidate of their choice. I have seen some fact checks that were claiming that at the time, people actually just wrote on blank pieces of paper, that there weren't names listed out on ballots in the same way. But either way, I think go ahead.
I don't know about that, but if you look on the sites, you'll see the tallies voted, and it's, you know, I'm looking at one site here. It says for the state of Georgia, it says Republican candidate Abraham Lincoln was not on the ballot in the state.
Well, look, the lessons of that era are really important, aren't they, Bo? I mean, look at what the left is doing right now. The left is literally tearing down monuments to the reconciliation of the country in the wake of the Civil War. And their anger at Lincoln culminated in his assassination. They killed him as president of the United States. And so, you know, we're dealing with very dark forces, unfortunately. And so I think the key is for us to fight back against them, keep our heads up, and try and hold on to this great country. That's the goal, and that's why it's worth looking at how the left acts throughout history, because it's kind of always the same way, isn't it, Bo? Thank you very much for the call. Coming up, we're going to be joined by Terry Schilling as the Biden administration starts to police whether or not families are allowing boys to wear dresses. And the New York Post's Josh Christensen will be here coming up in just about half an hour. We'll talk to him about Hunter Biden's many undocumented visits to the White House.